All right, my name is Rachel McGill. I am the Healthcare Workforce Liaison for JMD. My role is a partnership with MaineHealth in which we kind of work to increase awareness and build knowledge about different career opportunities for students and also training programs that are run kind of in-house or collaboratively within MaineHealth. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. If you have any questions while we're going through having this conversation, please feel free to put them in the Q&A portion down here. I've allotted some time at the end for us to address anything that may come up. At one point, I will be doing a poll question to the audience. The responses are anonymous, so please don't panic about that. And it's really just for us to get a sense of what you guys know currently about the job prospects for CNA right now. And then I do know I might have some educators out there who registered for their entire class and might be kind of watching together. If you don't mind putting in the chat how many students are participating live today, that would really just help me get a sense of how many are out there. And then really, it's just to introduce our lovely guests today. So we're going to have a conversation about the CNA apprenticeship program that MaineHealth runs. There are several locations across MaineHealth's organizations where you can get this CNA training program. Maine Medical Center is the one that we're going to be highlighting today because Diana Verrill, who is, I have to look at your title, Diana, again, I'm sorry, is the nursing professional development specialist, kind of manages that side of the program. And then Kim Radigan, who is a practicing CNA right now, went through that training program. So we're going to have a conversation with them about Kim, obviously, about her experience kind of as a CNA now. And then as she also went through the training program, she can kind of weigh in with some of the details and experience in that regard. Okay, so enough from me. Let's start with Kim. Kim, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so we'll start pretty easy, I think. Could you talk about your individual career path? So just kind of break down your story. How did you become a CNA, and did you always know that you wanted to work in healthcare?
Sure. So I'm originally from the New York City, New Jersey area, and I would be what you call a craft beer industry veteran. I worked in the craft beer industry for about 16 years. COVID came along and disrupted a lot of things. My mother was in the hospital for a month with COVID. My mom passed away from COVID complications, and my father-in-law had cancer, stage 4 cancer, all within a month, same month or so. And while my father-in-law was in the final days at his home with the immediate family, we were doing kind of like hospice care. I decided to like attend his medical needs in like a home hospice setting until the morning of his passing. And then something clicked that week that I was like, I'm gonna check into like CNA or medical field, and like it just led me to like the MaineMed healthcare page, and it was like CNA apprentice training program. And by the end of that week, I was already in like the field texting and like emailing and starting the class with Diana, Ashley, and Martha. Very grateful for that because it was like literally within the same week that happened. I was like, this is my calling. I became a CNA because I always wanted to help people. I mean, even in the industry field, I like would talk to people all the time, and like I was keen on like listening to stories. I've always been like a caring person, and I always wanted to make a difference in people's lives, and I knew that this was the path to do so. Um, I know that becoming a CNA would make a difference in not only mine, but it would give me the opportunity to like meet new people and help out in that sense. I would develop the skills that I would need to care for patients. And after completing the training program, I took the state certification exam, and I was super nervous, but I knew that once I wanted to do something and I put my goals to it, it happened. Uh, I passed the exam and I became a CNA, thankfully, with Diana and Martha and Ashley's awesome teachings. um, yeah, it's just, it all happened within so fast. And here I am a year later working in my unit, and I couldn't be happier and stoked, to keep on
That's
going.
incredible.
Yeah.
No, that's incredible. Thank you. I just want to highlight two things you said because it's really good for our students to hear that this was kind of a second career for you.
Yeah,
That
totally.
you
It
kind of,
was definitely
yeah,
after, I mean, like I said, I worked for like 16 years in that industry, and yeah, it was just like, it's never too late. I'm
yeah.
37. I definitely started a little bit later in life, but I am thoroughly enjoying it and meet new people every day. And I just really, really, really love my job. I'm so thankful where I am, you
Wow, that comes through, and thanks for sharing that answer.
know.
And I do also want to say it sounds like you had a lot of support in going through the training program, so I'm really excited to talk about that in the second half with kind of Diana. So
Yeah.
let's talk about your current role now as a CNA. So could you like walk us through what a day in your life looks like what kind of tasks or services you perform, what environment you work in, and maybe who you interact with in addition, like in terms of healthcare professionals in your day to day?
Sure. So, like a typical day for me is arriving to work at a timely fashion, getting my morning report, gives me an overview of the patient, like how my day is going to go. I introduce myself to the patients, update the board of fresh dates, with the names of the patient's team and so forth. I'm providing direct care with them. I do the ADLs, anything from like vital signs to food orders to washing up, dressing, feeding, toileting, making sure their beds are freshly made, anything they need throughout the day. I also chart. I make sure that, everything is needed and that the patient is comfortable listening to everything that they need. Mostly it's always with the patient I'm mostly interacting with, but also with like other healthcare professionals, nurses, the patient's families, like they always have questions, just making sure that they're number one and that they're feeling okay and comfortable in our unit mostly. Yeah. There's like, for example, like a story, like one time a patient was like, just, I work in cardiology field and a lot of patients go to like cath labs and like, open heart bypasses, and it's super stressed out because, the outcome of those are, you never know, and people are always getting freaked out. So my thing is like always like listening to them and, comforting them and this, like asserting them that they're in the best hands that, we've got, and that they're going to be okay. And they're always like so thankful that I'm there listening to them, all the compassion and the patience that I've had with them and washing up and taking care of them. And they're just always like so happy. And that giving back to me, I'm like, I just don't know how to describe that feeling. Like you just like feel so happy and content and like, it's rewarding. That's the right word, right? So
Yeah.
it's been pretty great.
Yeah, no, I love hearing you say that too, because it's, obviously there's the medical care side, the things that you train for and learn, the skills that you learn, but it's also the interpersonal relationships and interactions that you have with the patient families that it makes up a pretty big part of your day, it sounds like. That's
Yeah.
great.
And anything from also like I do, I love to be busy. That's one thing I'm always like helping out our unit. It's very important to like, point out like on our unit, and I'm sure every other unit, everybody's a big into teamwork. So I'm always
Yeah.
either also doing like stocking up or, little putting batteries in our telemetry boxes, checking in on doctors and nurses, like, do you need any help or anything? So
Yeah,
it's
that's great.
always learning something new too every day.
Are are you in a hospital setting, or is that so you're on a unit on a floor, a specific
Yeah.
unit floor for okay.
R7.
Oh, there you go. Okay. I think that's good to highlight because I do know a lot of students when they hear CNA, they think kind of assisted living facilities or nursing homes, so that there are additional pathways or career options for them that don't necessarily mean that that's where they have to work.
Yeah. And I started off when I was with Diana. I originally always wanted, I come from New York City, so I always want to be in a fast-paced environment, constantly moving and whatnot. And Diana was like, you know, I know that you want to do the ED and stuff, but you should, there's other spots. And I know that she came from a cardiology background, and I was really like keen into that. And I was like, all right, let me give it a shot. And I totally went over with ED. I didn't want to do ED anymore. I wanted to do cardiology. I was like, I shadowed. You're able to like shadow different spots what you want to do, and I honestly was like, I think this is the floor for me, like cardiology. Like I know that I say that I want to do fast paced, but the teamwork was just where it was at, and just the knowledge, like everyday learning. Anywhere you end up, you'll be happy, but yeah, you'll start. Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
like, oh,
but finding that
this
fit,
is great.
finding the
But that fit
yes,
was like perfect.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think you've alluded to some of this stuff already, but when we talk about, interests and skills that might make someone good as a CNA, you talked about teamwork. But I don't know if you want to elaborate on anything else that you think would be good for them to know.
Oh, definitely, like, the skills I think that would make a CNA, you know, the best is compassion, patience, I think. You definitely need to put yourself there that you wanna take care of a person, like, be ready to, like, attend their needs and listen to them and have the patience enough to, like, you're not rushing anything, it's all patient, and I have if anything, being a CNA has taught me to be a better person too, learn how to be patient with and outside of work too, and, like, learn how to be compassionate outs because I think we also forgot about that during the pandemic. We've all, like, haven't been with people for a long time, and then this has also been a really great opportunity, not only, for me to grow in the medical field and the healthcare field, but also as a person. So it's been pretty great in that aspect. Another thing that's been will be great for them to have is attention to detail. You know, very very detail oriented. People appreciate patients appreciate it when you remember their name, remember something they told you, or leave a little note or something, or like it just brightens somebody's day. It makes a difference. Just kindness and niceness. Teamwork and communication skills are also a huge thing. Like communication skills, not only with like the patient's family, but also the nurses and all their healthcare professionals, and and teamwork. I absolutely love that one. It's just cooperate with everybody, and follow directions, take directions, be okay with it. Follow, and
Yeah.
it's all. If you have any of these, please join the CNA field.
No, that's good. And it does sound like you were super prepared based off of the training program that you did. Like you feel like, you've gotten enough of the training that you needed to get out and be successful in the program. So and you have mentorships and the ability to shadow. So that's all fantastic. And I know we'll get into that more. I'm
Oh,
just
yeah.
trying to parrot back some of the things that I heard you say. Um, are there things that a high school student could do now to prepare for themselves for a career as a CNA? Yeah, are there ways that they could, get experiences in the field while they're still in high school?
Yeah, I would say like volunteering is a great experience, like volunteering at like a healthcare facility. You could get experience with working with patients there. You learn more about the healthcare field. You could do nursing homes, assisted living. You could also take like health related classes like anatomy and biology, and get that sense of what it is like working with the body and just medicine and science. Just delve into that, like if you really want to do something, learn about the career, and get fascinated, because there's a lot of things that will keep you going in this healthcare field, and you could just keep on going for. I think the door keeps on opening in the CNA world, like you just keep on going higher and higher, and it's pretty cool. Uh, you could take the training program, of course, with Diana at
Yeah.
MaineHealth, and I'm sure other places offer it. So it's pretty cool that you know we're this is happening, the webinar, and
Mm.
yeah, get certified.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on something we're going to talk about later on, which is kind of like the career ladder. So obviously CNA could be just the
Yes.
starting point for you. And I think there's probably different levels that you can get
Oh
to,
yeah.
which Diane's shaking her head, everybody's shaking their head. Um, so we will definitely talk about that. I do want to poll the audience really quickly just with a question because it kind of leads into the next conversation that we're going to have. So hang tight, guys. I'm gonna put this up and launch it. Um, okay, so you should be seeing a question right now, and it is how many CNA positions are currently open within MaineHealth? So if you had to pick, which one would you guys pick in terms of open positions right now? So we're just gonna give them a couple more seconds to answer just so we can kind of have a conversation about uh, where the job market is right now in terms of healthcare related fields, but CNA specifically. Okay, so we only have 2 of 6. I'm going to give them 10 more seconds and I'm going to close it out. Somebody else. 4. Oh, there might have been a debate happening because now the answers are coming in. Okay, so we're going to end the poll. We'll share results. Hopefully you guys are seeing those results on the screen right now. That we had 3 people say 167 openings, 2 people say 213 openings, and 1 person said 402. So I'm going to stop sharing right now. Interestingly enough, when I went on the career page today, it was 167 openings, but I know that that doesn't give the full story. So Diana, if you want to kind of jump in here, please feel free.
Yeah, I was thinking 167 at MaineMed. That was my initial thought. Because at any given point, MaineMed will have anywhere between 100 to 130-ish open CNA jobs. And with a lot of our postings, there may be 2, 3, sometimes even 4 jobs associated with that one posting. So it might be, full-time days in the ED. There could be 3 or 4 full-time days that are attached to that one posting. So when you think about the possibility of that with 167, that multiplies by quick. I was thinking the 400, to be honest, if like all within MaineHealth, but who knows?
Yeah, I'm sure that it actually is. I should have talked to talent before, but I just did a quick search and I figured you guys could provide some context for those numbers. But I guess the major point that we want to take away right now is that there are there's a lot of opportunity within healthcare right now, specifically for CNAs. And it's not just MaineHealth that needs these folks. It's pretty much statewide, nationwide. We're in a essential healthcare worker shortage. So things, if you have resonated with the things that Kim said, if you've already been experiencing some interest, we're going to talk about the training program next, which is something that, again, just to reiterate, MaineHealth runs this at Maine Medical Center, which is the one we're going to be talking about today. But there's also a program in Lincoln Health and Penn Bay Medical Center. So there's 3 locations statewide that students, at least within MaineHealth, could get this training program. But Diana, do you want to kick us off with just maybe let's talk some details about the program. How long is it? What does the structure look like?
Yeah, so our program is a 7-week program. It's approximately 28 hours per week. And we do work in conjunction with Portland Adult Education, but all training takes place at Maine Medical Center or MaineHealth buildings with Maine Medical Center employees, nurses, and CNAs. So we are a 7-week program. We have our curriculum consists of what the state mandates us to train CNAs with. 28 hours a week. The 7 weeks consists of classroom time. So there is quite a bit of lecture, of course, because you need to know what you're going to be doing. And then we also have something called Skills Lab. So Skills Lab takes place in the classroom setting with mannequins and beds. But this is where you get to take what you've learned and practice that, but away from patients, where you can kind of build some confidence on some of your skills. Even some of the Skills Labs, our students will be the patients. So you guys will learn how to mobilize patients and turn patients, but you're doing it on each other. And then, so that's about 20 hours of our classroom time total. And then you'll also have 10 clinical days. So clinicals are about 7 hours each day. And this is where you get to take everything you've learned from class and class and skills labs and translate it to the clinical setting where you're actually working with real Maine Medical Center patients on our inpatient units. The inpatient units do vary class to class. So we have all different types of specialties, med surg sometimes, cardiology, medicine. Our clinical sites do switch out, but those are the 3, I'd say, main parts of the program.
That's incredible. So you're saying 28 hours per week. Is this something that people could work while they're going through this part-time, or is it not recommended that this is kind of the only thing that you're doing?
I think everybody's different. So I think it's a possibility. I do have quite a few students that will have a job on the side. They might be a server over the weekend. Sometimes they have other jobs in healthcare. It's finding a balance because there's a lot of homework and reading assignments that aren't part of the 28 hours per week. So it's finding that balance of, can I get the assignments done? Can I get my studying done while also maintaining this other job and being, in this current role, which we'll assume we'll talk about, but it is a paid role. So it is essentially a job as well.
Yeah, that was kind of the next part of it. This is, from the phrase is earn while you learn, right? So students are paid to train. I believe they also get part-time benefits while they're going through the program. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. They are paid $16 an hour for every hour you spend in class or clinical. And then, yes, you are benefits eligible as well.
That's great. And when they when they convert, so after they pass their certification, go through the training program, what did that pay go up, and is that vary across the different programs or different
So,
locations maybe?
yeah, it could vary across different locations. I'm unsure about that, but I can say that at Maine Medical Center, as a brand new CNA with no previous experience, the starting pay is $19.38. And then there's what we call shift differentials. So for instance, night shift, it's an extra $2 and something cents. A night weekend, I think it's over $4 extra an hour on top of that 1938. So
Got it.
there are times, depending on what shift, where you can make more money per hour.
That is actually something we didn't talk about with Kim, but I'm assuming that typically schedule wise, like when you're outside of the training program, but a typical schedule for a CNA, is it typically the 12-hour shifts that you're kind of working? Is that what it looks like? Okay.
Yeah, and I know that in some units, at least in our unit, we start at 6, whereas in some other units they start 7. So, but that's the only difference.
Oh, like 6 p.m. or 6, you mean
Yeah,
like
like
the
we come in at 6 a.m. and
changeover? Yeah.
yeah. So
Got it.
I do the AM. We do 312s on full time, but
Okay.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
pretty.
the vast majority, very few units in the acute care setting, definitely at Maine Medical Center anyways, offer 8-hour shifts, unless you're picking up overtime, and then they would typically let you do that. But typically, part-time 2 12s a week, full-time 3 12s a week.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that's great information for our students to have. Okay. So we talked about kind of the structure of the program. Could you go through kind of the high points of the application process? Where would a student go if they're interested? How would they apply? Who do they talk to?
Yeah, so we do have a email address, and I better confirm this, but I believe it is CNA program at MaineHealth.org. I'm going to confirm that while we're chatting. And so we can inquire there. Martha DeVoli is the administrative specialist for our program, and we take all of the inquiries, and then she will email you back basically what you kind of need to know in order to take this program. It starts with something we call a CASA's reading assessment. And actually, I should take a step back there. In order to be eligible for our program specifically, you do have to have a high school diploma or equivalent of a GED. Then you would sit for what we call the CASA's reading exam, which is something that everybody has to take on admission, unless you have a degree from a US accredited school, such as an associate's or a bachelor's. But otherwise, it's just the CASA's reading assessment portion. The scoring is different, but you need to score a 240 or above. When you score 240 or above, which we have, once I get you that website, there's a place that will send you to another website where you can sign up to take the CASAs for free at Portland Adult Education. Okay. Once we get that passing score, Martha would send you an invite to something called an info session. So it's an information session. It's about an hour-long Zoom where we go over every part of the program, what it is to be a CNA, what it's like to care for people, including the onboarding and hiring process. So that is usually in the evening hours for an hour. Once we have that, you have about another week to submit your application, which will include an application you have to fill out online. In addition to that, a copy of your social security card, a copy of your Maine State ID or license, and also 2 reference letters or recommendation letters. There is a caveat to those, is that we do ask that they're professional reference letters. So it can't be a family member. We try not to do close friends. It can't be a significant other. If you've not had a job before, which does happen, then we would take them from a previous coach, teacher, somebody that kind of had that role in your life. Sometimes even like a pastor. So we can get creative as far as where those come from. Once we have all of your application materials, we would offer an interview. The interview is via Zoom. It's only 15 minutes. And then pending that interview, you would get a letter of acceptance from us, which would officially hire you into our program. And then it would start the onboarding program with Maine Medical Center. Because if you recall, your Maine Med employees when you take our program. So there's our onboarding and then Maine Meds.
Got it. So I know that was a lot of information out there for our students, and part of my role is to help kind of make those connections. So if anyone is interested and wants to have a further conversation, you can always start with me, and then we'll kind of make sure that you get to Diana, to Martha, to whoever you need to kind of get that process started. So don't be intimidated by the process.
Yeah.
And then how many cohorts do you, so I know you have one starting in June, correct? And then what other start points do you have throughout the year?
Yeah, so we run 6 times a year, which means we're running 42 weeks out of the year. So the next course would start in the end of August, and then we usually have one that starts at the end of October. And then essentially January, March, May, July. Yeah. So we are continuous. We always run 6 times a year.
Okay.
So if it's ever not the right fit, there's always another one coming up as far as timing.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's good to know. I know we do have a lot of graduating seniors right now who are thinking about what their plans might be. So it's good to know that they have some staggered possibilities for, yeah,
And
that's
real
great.
quick, that email address was cnaprogram@MaineHealth.org.
Awesome. I loved what Kim talked about with kind of the ability to go out and shadow different areas. And obviously, if they're doing clinical time, they're getting out into different parts of the hospital, different environments. So I don't know if you want to add anything about that, but it does sound like the students are super supported in this process, kind of in all those transition points, in the point of trying to decide which area, maybe in the part 2 actually studying for the certification, and then even for like going for the actual trying to get hired into a full-time position. So could you talk about those 3 things, Diana?
Yeah, so I do think we try to be incredibly supportive as far as our program and, we want you guys to be successful. So that's first and foremost really important to us. So yes, you'll have clinical on a specific site, but something to keep in mind is that during week 4 or 5 of the program is actually when you start applying for CNA jobs. And you can apply to anywhere within Maine Medical Center that has an opening. And if you're not sure where, sometimes people are really sure and sometimes they aren't, then you can work with us and we'll help get you in contact with the managers and directors of each unit, where you can go and shadow a CNA for sometimes 2 to 4 hours, just to get a feel of the unit, the patient population, the staff, and see if it feels like home to you. And so those shadow opportunities are always open to students. And in addition to that, again, we really kind of, I don't want to say hold your hand, but essentially we really guide you through the entire process of not only the course, but applying for those jobs, even interview skills. We address so many different things so we can ensure that at the end of this program, you are lined up for success for the next year and plus, and many, many more years to come, I should say.
No, that's great. And I know that this program actually doesn't cost the students anything, correct?
Mhm.
They don't pay to take the program, but there is a work requirement at the end, correct? Could you talk about that?
Yeah, so there is a work requirement that if you do sign up with us, the expectation is that you work for Maine Medical Center for a minimum of 1 year as a CNA for a minimum of 20 hours per week. Which most people, it's not an issue at all because they've kind of fallen in love with the unit they're doing clinical on. But in addition to that, the program, not only do we pay you, but essentially we cover all of the costs. So there's an application cost, for instance, to apply to become a CNA. We cover that. We cover the cost of the state exam. We even cover the cost of the textbook and the workbook, which are yours to keep. The only cost to the student currently, and we're working on this to see if it can change, but is the cost of the uniform for clinicals, which is just black scrub pants and a white scrub top, and essentially any shoe that's appropriate for healthcare. So that's the one current cost to students, but otherwise we cover all costs in addition to paying you hourly.
Awesome. And I know we're at time right now, but if those out there watching could give us, 1 to 2 minutes just to wrap up, just because this conversation, there's so much information that has to get out. So I did want to thank you both for your time today. And we don't have any questions coming through on the Q&A, but I did want to give you both maybe the opportunity to kind of close out any last thoughts or things that you might want to say to our group.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I'll just throw out there, I was a CNA. I worked in long-term care. I worked at Maine General Augusta. I worked at Maine Medical Center. CNA work is amazing. It's an honor. It's incredible. And just remember that we need great CNAs who want to be CNAs forever, but there's so many different starting points or so many different avenues you can take. So just keep that in mind. CNA has that bird's eye view of every discipline in healthcare: physical therapy, occupational therapy, nursing, dietary. So keep that in mind because it is a great starting point. You get to see everything going around you, and then it might inspire you to take another path. So the options are
Yeah.
endless. I just can't even tell you. They're endless.
Yeah, it sounds like we could even do a part 2 of this conversation
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
Kim, do you want to add anything before we
I
sign off?
agree with her. I 100 when she said it's like endless. There's yeah, you could just keep on going. You could become, CNA2. There's so many different things, PCT, or you could, you fall in love with like something that you decided to work with. Like for like I'm just gonna go for where I work, cardiology. You could go do echo, cath lab, or become a nurse. And some say like, becoming a nurse, if you're a CNA before becoming a nurse, you just have that role and just adds an extra pizzazz. I've heard become an MP, you keep on going. There's just so many opportunities. And I think also meeting the people and the stories, all the patients, and I just love meeting everybody. Everybody has a unique story and I'm here to hear it and take care of them. But it's been
Oh,
great.
well,
Thanks,
that's a
me Medical
that,
Center and Diana and everybody and my whole team. I just love my job. Thankful.
that's so good to hear. And it comes through, totally does, about the passion you both feel for this kind of career path. And we just thank you so much for your time and look forward to future conversations maybe about, the next thing beyond CNA, but really appreciate it. And thank you guys for hanging in a little bit longer today. But with that, I'll stop the recording and we can sign off. Thank you guys again.
Thanks.